to be fair, this is actually...
I was being fair.
No, this is a huge Democratic Party problem. If you look at Democratic cities, they are terribly run. They have incredibly high taxes. It is impossible to build, so the cost of housing... Let me finish. I'll give you a chance. Cost of housing is crazy in places like New York and Chicago. If you look at Democratic...
All right, folks, brace up, because this one's a genuine roller coaster. Picture this. Bill Maher, on his iconic show Real Time, took direct aim at the heavyweights of woke journalism in a way that left jaws dropping across the board.
He said, you know, you get the green card, but with this, the gold card, you get extra privileges. like what? You get to vote twice? Or what?
It's amazing. Well, now you're speaking Chicago language. I'm for it, but it's part of a bigger package on immigration reform. It's been 42 years since the last one. So I'm not against it, but it's part of a whole package.
In a fierce and furious fight, Maher brings important Democratic leaders into the spotlight, pointing out the glaring policy failures in huge Democrat-led cities.
The current mayor of Chicago has an approval rating of 6.6%.
Round it up, 7.
I mean, you were just the ambassador to Japan. If that was your approval rating in Japan, they would do harakiri on live TV.
They would do it at 27.
I mean, what's going on in Chicago as the person?
Look, I mean, we were talking about this a little earlier. I mean, you have also the mayor of New York not doing well. Obviously, other things also here in Los Angeles not doing well, the mayor here. Look, and then you got mayors like the mayor in San Francisco and other cities that are doing well. So I would say, look, there is a general rule. I had this when I was mayor. Safe streets, strong schools, stable finances. Focus on those 3 things and your city's going to be fine. We've gone through 5 years where people became way too permissive of culture. They were all, which is why everything's locked up at Walgreens and CVS, and that is a disaster. Yeah. And I'll say this about our schools. I don't want to hear another word about the locker room. I don't want to hear another word about the bathroom. You better start focusing on the classroom. We had the worst reading scores for 8th graders in 30 years. And nobody, not a governor, not a mayor, not a president, not a secretary of education is talking about it. We're all wrapped up. Look, in 7th grade, if I known that I could have said the word they and got in the girls' bathroom, I would have done it.
We're diving deep into exorbitant taxes, outrageous housing expenditures, and the big question, why these policies just aren't working.
Trump wants to sell a visa. You get permanent residency. By the way, I looked this up, we are hardly the first country to do this. Doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. But, you know, I remember...
Yeah, we actually have a version of it. It's I think it's called the EB-5 or something like that. So it's fine to do it. I actually think maybe it's because I'm, very patriotic. I think 5 million, we should be charging 20 million, or, American citizenship is worth more than that.
It comes with Ukrainian minerals, though.
But what I love...
During this episode, Maher doesn't pull any punches, addressing guests from CNN and beyond with some hard facts.
Fareed Zakaria and the former mayor of Chicago and former ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, and chief of staff, weren't you? You don't think that's a more impressive credit than those other 2? Chief of staff of the White House? I feel like that is the biggest job you can have in this country behind the president. Isn't that the gatekeeper of everything, the chief of staff?
It is the gatekeeper, but the biggest job is mayor.
Of Chicago.
Yeah. And then chief of staff is the worst job until you get through it, and then you look back fondly on it. But going through it is
They don't last long. I mean, like, it's so intense, right, that you can only do it for like...
18 to 19 months is the modern average.
Right.
Yeah, not that I figured that out, but I want you to know that.
But with ambassador, you get called the honorable ambassador for the...
Yeah,
so you probably get better restaurant reservations with that.
So sensitive, don't you think? Yeah, you do. And it's Your Excellency from now on to you. I went through Senate confirmation.
All right, this is from the people. What do you think about Trump's proposed $5 million gold card visa for wealthy foreigners? Is it smart economic move or a problematic policy? I guess what I know.
Emmanuel makes an appearance, openly boasting about his skills as a former mayor and ambassador. Sure, becoming chief of staff at the White House is an important role, but Maher wasted little time peeling down the layers, pressing Emmanuel on leadership failings in Democratic strongholds like Chicago. Let's be honest, Maher reveals the hefty taxing and housing prices suffered by normal people in locations like New York and Chicago. And who wouldn't be upset by that? As Maher presses further, you can just feel his wrath exploding off the screen. He takes out Emmanuel on the growing violence and educational failures, issues that normally get brushed under the rug in favor of flashier topics. Maher makes it clear Democrats are falling short in their leadership. Emmanuel throws a few defense punches, but there's no mistaking the fact beneath Maher's statements. Things flare up even more when taxes and housing take center stage. Maher shows a startling contrast between Democrat-controlled New York and Republican-run Florida, showing the evident gap in spending versus results. Why, he says, is New York's budget so huge yet generates so little? The streets aren't paved with gold, that's for sure, and you can sense the throng nodding along in unison. People are dissatisfied by sky-high spending with little to show for it. As the conversation moves to housing, tensions grow. Maher terrifies Emmanuel and his fellow Democrat guests by going into the bloated bureaucracy that hampers innovation and inflates prices. It's a system that keeps folks stuck paying enormous fees while barely getting by.
To be fair, this is actually...
I was being fair.
No, this is a huge Democratic Party problem. If you look at Democratic cities, they are terribly run. They have incredibly high taxes. It is impossible to build, so the cost of housing... Let me finish. I'll give you a chance. Cost of housing is crazy in places like New York and Chicago. If you look at Democratic states, you go to look at New York versus Florida, okay? Roughly the same population. The budget of New York State is twice that of Florida. What do they have? Streets paved with gold? I live in New York. I pay the highest taxes in New York. You get nothing for it. And I think that is the image people have of the Democratic Party. Sure. Lots of taxes, lots of regulation, but nothing gets done.
Hey, and I live in L.A.
Right. If the Democrats have to own this and realize the answer to everything is not more taxes, more regulation. People are fed up of that, and they feel that it isn't working.
The Democrats, look, as somebody who produced the best graduation growth in the country.
Then comes the education difficulty. Maher dashes in headlong, pointing out extremely low reading scores, a national embarrassment for a supposed world leader. Emmanuel tries to evade with normal explanations, but Maher stays tight. Forget locker room chatter, he insists. Let's get back to classrooms. It's a period that obviously connects with folks annoyed by political theater, while teenagers continue to fall behind in basic education. In moments like these, Maher's talent as a debater emerges, forcing the CNN anchor into uncomfortable territory. Even with talking points at the ready, the host can't dismiss the cold, hard numbers Maher presents, data illustrating the adverse repercussions of Democratic policies on locations like San Francisco and Los Angeles. The crowd responds in real time. Audible sighs, gasps, and applauding add to the tight atmosphere, indicating the common anger of onlookers. The conversation takes an even more dramatic turn when they touch on immigration, specifically the disputed idea involving Trump's notion for a $5 million gold card visa for rich immigrants. And boy, does it create a reaction. Maher observes the irony. Democrats want to demand sky-high prices for American residents while attacking Trump for his tough approach on immigration. You can't help but shake your head at the disparity. It's as if they don't even hear themselves. Though everyone feels change is vital, the method it's presented evokes either laughter or boos from the crowd.
No, that's not the point. The point was but I'll take that. The point isn't the rules. The point is the results. And the party has gotten way too focused on what the rules are. And I do agree with you on this. We have made it impossible to function as a city or as a state, and been so, take an example of this example. Here, obviously in LA, it took a fire and a natural disaster to make you realize, you know what, that rule's not that important. In Pennsylvania, a bridge collapse, all of a sudden we go, well, that environmental rule is just not important. We got to build a bridge. It's much more important. And I think the Democratic Party should take a look at it and say, we're going to be honest, like we did in 1994 with reinventing government. Everything is on the table. Nothing is safe.
And we can just look at it and say, that's essential. Those two things get out of here. And that doesn't happen. And that's a fair criticism.
Maybe this is your next Democratic vice presidential candidate, maybe presidential candidate. And by the way, he's also, that counts as handicap. You can slip him by.
This gets you handicap parking right here.
Emanuel insists substantial reforms are happening, but glosses over responsibilities for current shortcomings. Then Maher drops the genuine truth bomb. The way forward is not about red tape or symbolic gestures. It's about efficiency and results. The crowd crackles with intensity when the discussion turns back to infrastructure, where Maher brings home the damage caused by overregulation in democratic states. Emanuel eventually recognizes several weaknesses, signaling a rethink may be warranted. As the conversation winds down, the tension still stays in the air. Maher's frank demands made a visible impact, not just on the guests, but on the audience at home. For everyone thinking Emanuel coasted through this interview, think again. Behind every back and forth came a maelstrom of hard-hitting arguments that got into the very heart of the matter. So, what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.